Alrighty. Good evening, everybody. Yeah, let's do this. Ready to go. So, connecting to the multi-stream. My name is Curtis Walker, and I am the precinct chair 3465 for Tarrant County GOP. And yeah, it's a good day. Beautiful day out. Had an opportunity to go out and ride the motorcycle, so I was really good about that. Worked a little bit, and yeah, a lot going on in the world today. A lot going on in the world today. So I'll just put something up right now and just kind of give you the people that are on, what do you call it? Next door. Or other than that, interesting discussions happening on Next Door. I believe it was Miss Rachel Poyser. She posted something about separation of church and state, and I commented on that, and man, that thing, good conversations, great opinions by so many different people. I understand where they're coming from, understanding pretty much the historical perspective, but just in case you don't know, there was a situation where I think she commented about the Ten Commandments being posted in front of a courthouse. In case you don't know, well, I'm pretty sure everybody knows by now, but if you have $1 or $10 or $5, you see in God we trust. So the concept of separation of church and state, but the concept of God, right, is all across our society. But the point being is that the question was, does it go too far? And because it's the Ten Commandments. And so one of the things that we were talking about was, the Ten Commandments is a Judeo-Christian thing. Excuse me, need to hydrate. But in all honesty, that would be a Mosaic law, right? Because as far as from a Christian perspective, the law is supposed to lead you to Christ Jesus. So to say that it's a Christian nationalism when it's a Mosaic law would be a little bit, far-fetched. For if you kind of understand the tenets of Christianity, but society is, particularly here in the West and in the United States, of course, based upon Judeo-Christianity, morals, beliefs, that's integrated in the documents of our founding fathers. Whether people remember that or not, that's a whole different issue. And then somebody was bringing up, well, why couldn't it be the Magna Carta or the Bill of Rights? And I said that's an easy thing that you could discover if you chose to go that way. But if you did understand the Magna Carta is heavily influenced by Christian theology. So even if you just took the Magna Carta, and then of course you get the Bill of Rights, and then of course you get the documents are U.S. Constitution, Declaration of Independence, right? So you do see the tenets of Christianity, or the tenets of religion involved. Nevertheless, I think most people know that. I think the Ten Commandments are also in the United States Supreme Court. Pretty sure about that. I could be wrong. Pretty sure about that, though. Anyway, so let's see. What are we doing? Let me see if I can get some things going here. I am going to get some things going here. Get this bingo from the beginning. So let's do this. So I'll just start this. So the reason that I say it's a changing world, because it is truly a changing world. Each and every day, each and every moment, something is happening, something is transpiring across our lives, across the globe. Things that impact us directly and immediately, and things that do not impact us directly and immediately, but sometimes a month down the line or 2 months down the line. So that's why it's a changing world. This is episode 10. Again, my name is Curtis Walker. I am the precinct chair 3465. For those people that live in the Vista Meadows community, or live in the area between Heritage Trace, Golden Triangle, Vista, Alta Vista, in this little quadrant of area, those are all the people that are that populate the precinct 3465. I'm going to continue. Of course, I live in Vista Meadows, and this is the Fort Worth area of Texas. And I created this live stream as a medium of connecting with people, and particularly those living in this precinct. And it's a public medium, which means anybody could stay. So I'm going to also do this because I always say that you can text me while I'm doing this. I have the ability. That's why I'm wearing my earphones right now. That you can actually call. I can listen to you. You can listen to me, and it'll be live. So that's good. Um, so you can see that I was originally born in Florida. Grew up most of my life in New York. Now I'm a resident of Texas because I came here with my job. Educated FTC and University of Arizona, and been involved in government pretty much in some shape or form since Winston-Salem. And the first thing that we'd like to cover is we had a recent Senate District 9 election between Leah Wambats, the Republican candidate, and Taylor Emmett, the Democrat candidate. So the question right there I have up on the screen is, what do you think of the recent Senate District 9 election result? Now, Taylor Emmett won that election result with approximately 58,000 votes, and Leah had 40-something thousand votes, so he won by about 14%. The outstanding registered vote of Senate District 9, I believe it's, how many people have registered? At least 350, 400,000, maybe more. Don't know if that number is accurate, but nevertheless, generally, when Kelly Hancock was Senate District 9, he was averaging somewhere about 140,000 votes during his campaigning election, those drives. The fact that Leah only received 40,000, of course, there was an inclement weather that affected the whole early election, a special election, the early voting, and then the day of the vote. Because right across from where I live, in the area I live, there is one of the polling stations was Eagle Ridge Elementary School. It was basically empty for the majority of the day, and that was the case in a lot of places. That being said, I'm sure that most people would know that Tarrant County has always been a red district. And I believe that Donald Trump won this by a margin of plus 12. So the fact that Leah only received 40,000 when the combined total between Leah and Mr. Huffman during the general election portion was, I'm going to guess, about 60,000. If the same people that had voted in that election voted in this election, then Leah would have obviously won because she would have 60,000. And Taylor would have had 57, 56,000. So she would have won by 4 or 5%. However, that did not happen. So many people that are registered Republicans did not vote. It is, obvious because there you could have 140, 150,000 votes as Republicans. They didn't vote. They didn't show up for whatever reason. And that brings me to the next question about why is it that during off-cycle elections there is so much quote-unquote apathy. And the reason I say apathy, as I take this off the screen, the reason I say apathy is means there are people that choose not to vote. Why do they choose not to vote? I don't particularly know why. Actually, I can say that I have a good indication of why it is that happens. But one of the things that I want to talk about as I'm looking through this here, I actually wrote about this at the U of A, and it matters because the way people formulate their opinions, the way people get their information, the way they decide plays a role in what happens during elections, what happens during a mainstream election or a quote-unquote presidential election every 4 years. That has what we call a lingering effect. And then do people stay as passionate, as civic-minded after those elections going into these off-cycle elections? But the statistics show that that is not the case. What generally happens is that people will show up for whatever reasons, how they're motivated, they're enthusiastic to get out and vote for whatever candidate they choose. I would say that, let me preface this, I would say that voting obviously is something that we all should do because, believe it or not, your vote counts because you matter. Your say and your voice in this quote-unquote democratic republic makes a difference. Whether you think it doesn't or not, it does make a difference. So apathy is defined as a lack of interest or enthusiasm or concern for something, and we say, how does that happen? There's a lot of articles that have been written over the years on this subject, and one of that I have found of great interest is this site called Election Vote, which says what is voter apathy and igniting passion for political engagement. And it gives a brief overview statement that is of immense concern on the political landscape, and that the roots are of a varying source. The implications of continued apathy in relation to democracy are extremely serious because they can weaken the representation of people as well as undermining legitimacy as it relates to elected officials. And for individuals, that may not matter, but in democracy where total count makes a difference, there is this connecting fiber of two political parties rather, and information and the electorate. And when I say about for the individual, it may not matter, but think about it this way. Let's say there is a area of XYZ people that chooses not to vote. And then there's an area of XYZ people that choose to vote. Because they abstain from voting, that means all of their representation for both areas will now be, though, that representation chosen by this over here on the left in comparison to that on the right. So that means these people over here will not have any representation. That means all their concerns, all their issues will not be voiced or heard because they don't have representation. Much is the case when we talk about the situation where there are states that have had not one, when I say it this way, there are states where there's obviously a split vote, and that is in every state. But at the same time, they have solely one party representing the entire state. For instance, if you have 56% of the vote for Democrats and 44% of the vote for Republicans, why is that state only allowing or allotting the complete representation for the Democrats? There is no representation whatsoever on a congressional level or for the 44%. And this is what I mean when it means that it may not seem like it matters to you, but it does undermine the whole concept of a democratic republic, because now you have people that are left without a voice. In the case of people right here in the local area, when you don't participate civically, we don't participate in the electorate, you are registered to vote, but you choose to abstain. Your voice, even though you have concerns that are legitimate, even though you have issues that are legitimate, you don't have the representation. So that's why it is incumbent upon each and every person to kind of call that to attention that, hey, my voice matters and my voice counts, and I want to be represented. I want to be quote unquote numbered, and I want to have say in what happens to me in my future, in my community, if that makes sense. So if the numbers are correct, and they would say this, that as much as half of the eligible voters in the United States that are eligible to vote do not go to polls. That's an interesting thing, but the Knight Foundation discovered that in its 100 Million Project, where they discovered, particularly in the past 2016 presidential election, that approximately 43% of voters did not cast a ballot. So I'll repeat that. During the 2016 election, let's remember who was being elected. That was President Obama's election. So 43% of people did not vote at all. That's a very high number to consider, right? And the report states that a large portion of the population receives little, if any, attention and remains a mystery to many institutions. So the main purpose was to decipher who these people are and what their concerns are in relation to why they don't vote. So I thought that's an interesting thing to talk about, interesting thing. And as a precinct chair, I've had a chance to be in the building, and I thought that when I'm walking around in the precinct and on occasions and knocking on doors or calling people or emailing people, I have experienced that apathy, and people, express that. And this is a off cycle in between election cycle. And it was intimating, why is this feeling, and why does it come to politics specifically? So especially in the recent years, no matter the party affiliation, this is something that I find interesting. And so you understand that parties campaign to effectively message their constituents and possible voters by design. That's what they're trying to do. And so by tackling the 3 points, apathy and ignorance, define that, which we've done. What electrifies the community, which means what attracts, what inspires, and what is relatable. And then it has to be more than motivation, right? It has to inspire you to act. And when you reverse engineer that, people have reasons for not voting. And those reasons can be a lot of things. It could be the candidate quality. I'm going to put up a chart here, if I can get to it, and show you something that I think everyone will find pretty interesting. if I can get to it. And then we'll get back to this part right here. Oh, before I even get to that. So the common reasons for voters not turning out are the feeling of powerlessness, which means that you don't believe that you count, your vote doesn't count. Poor choices or limited choices. Some people wish there were more candidate choices. Then there's cynicism, right? I don't want to get into politics, right? People just, I don't want to hear about that stuff. And then, and when I say this doesn't mean lack of education, like being stupid or anything. It means uneducated and the uneducated populace, which means that you're just not informed, you're just not aware of how things impact you on a personal or familial level, on a community level. And so you're uneducated to the whole concept of what's going on in politics. And then the influence of social media and news outlets and other sources is a reason. There's awareness issues again. There's the feeling that this is a little bit too complex. I don't know what's going on when you see HB bill this, or you see this amendment, you see these things that are on the ballot. And then, of course, there's the disenfranchisement part of it, or the negative campaign or partisan, which means that when people say negative things about people, it's like it turns people off. So this is a complex and a real issue. And when I was working at the TCGOP, and I got to converse with some people there and walking the blocks, and I understood that. But I'm a big believer in what Dale Carnegie said. He said that you can make more friends in 2 months by becoming interested in them and other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get other people interested in you, which is something that I think that candidates, doesn't matter what your political persuasion is, should take key. Like, I think that people want to feel a connection to the candidate. That inspires them. And you want to feel that that candidate understands your issue. It's not so much that the electorate understands the candidate issue. It's like, well, this is what bothers me. Do you understand what I'm going through? Do you understand how what you're doing impacts me? Because I want to know that I can trust you to work on my behalf. Because ultimately, that is what representation is. It is a person that you choose to work on your behalf. So this, I think this lack of approach is something that affects us. I'm looking for particularly 2 charts real quick. No, let's not do that one. Come on now, come on now, come on now, come on, come on, come on. Bingo. Now, let's see if I can put this up for you. All right, so on this chart right here, this is something that I wrote. You can see that it gives you a list of what Democrat voters prioritize party values when casting the ballot. So the first thing you see right here in the red, 27% of all Democratic voters believe that the Democratic Party better represents their values. Something that you often hear, which I didn't notice when we had this conversation on Nextdoor about the separation of separation of church and state, and how people actually saw that in contrast to what it actually means, because it's like conversation. You have to decode it, right? There's what I say, and then there's what you heard me say, and how you interpreted what I said, what that means to you, and then you answer me, and now I decode to make sure that we're still seeing it the same. We're having the same conversation, because oftentimes in relationships, at our job, on the playground, people are having conversations, but there's no understanding in between them. And this is the thing that comes up a lot. So you said, I believe the Democratic Party better represents my values. Okay, what's that? And then Republicans are a threat to democracy. Okay, we live in a democratic republic. Is a threat to democracy because you don't agree with me, or because we see things differently? Is that really a threat? Because our democratic principles say that isn't a threat. But again, it's not what I said. It's what the person understands me, and what understands, or the way they see their worldview, which dictates how people can come to this, and that works vice versa. Republican policies have moved too far to the right and are becoming extreme. Again, I believe that Democrats, this is 10%, believe that Democrats would do a better job handling economic conditions like gas prices, food prices, and other rising costs. And then keep going down. I'm worried about Republicans cutting health care, Social Security, and Medicare. Incidentally, everybody always talks about this, but there's no cuts. Democrats understand and care about my district's needs more than Republicans do. And I believe that Democrats would better handle the current situation with the coronavirus pandemic. This is what was going on in this article back then. I'm going to come off the screen real quick, and now I'm going to get you the other side. All right, let's see if I can get it out. I can. Okay. I'm a one-man show, so you have to bear with me. All right. So what about this? Republican voters prioritize economic concerns when casting their ballots. I believe Republicans will do a better job handling economic and conditions like gas prices, food prices, and other rising costs. And then 23% believe that the Republican Party better represents my values. Of course, this is the state of Texas, right? So that would be more than likely normal. Democratic policies move too far to the left and are becoming extreme. You see how this goes? Now, 17% of the Republicans that vote think this. Democrats are a threat to American democracy, 10%, and then so forth and so on, I believe those. And then if you look at the bottom chart, which I didn't show in the first, you say, I always vote for Republicans for Congress, 34% of they're showing there. And then I normally vote for Republicans for Congress, and I have voted, and I 50-50 vote, so forth and so on. So I think that when it comes to this whole situation of the election that had just happened, you had a Republican candidate, Leah Wambaums, and let me get a little, if I can, let me see if I can get some of that information up for you. There you are. And let's contrast these people, right? Let's contrast the two. Let's just do it this way. So when you see right here, so Leah ran on women's sports and private spaces. Now, full enclosure, I'm Christian. I believe that they're God-created man and women. That is it. That's my belief. So that's going to affect the way that I vote. That's also going to affect my worldview. Because, again, when we talked in the beginning how since we believe that the United States of America, its origins and its founding fathers and the founding documents were heavily influenced by Judeo-Christianity beliefs. I think one of the things that I found interesting in the conversation today with someone who was saying, well, what if we didn't have a separation of church and state, but we inserted Quranic verses? And I said, okay, that's not necessarily the question, but let's just say that is the case. Because there are many people that believe, not many, but there is this narrative out there that, America should be like this country, or America should be like this country. What I will say, and I think that everyone would agree in, there is no one getting on a boat from the United States, risking their life to go to many of the countries that people say are better. That would be safe to assume, right? There's no one risking their life to go to Cuba. There's no one risking their life to go to Afghanistan. There's no one risking their life to go to Poland or Romania. There's no one risking their life to go to Tahiti. They're not getting on boats and dying, risking their life to go to those countries. No disrespect to any of those countries, their economy, the economic infrastructure, anything. But I just want to make that point because of what I'm about to say. So let's just say you did say that as, I'm going to bring up the screen. So let's just say that was true. We can say that we have a historical record of what happens when societies are based on one group of beliefs, morals, and values in contrast to another. It is no coincidence that we know that Western society has advanced to a certain degree in comparison to third world countries and other countries that have different sets of beliefs, morals, and values and principles. For many people that here in the United States, domestic violence is a huge thing. The treatment of women, infants, education, free thought, the freedom of religion. The fact that it's interesting that you hear people talk about they don't like America or whatever the case may be, but you're also benefiting from the capitalistic society that we live in. So, okay, let's just say that you don't really want to do that. Then what about if you lived in a country that didn't have all of the freedoms and all of the benefits that America affords you? So let's say you're a female and you live in a country that doesn't necessarily see females on the same level, that you don't have this quote unquote sense of feministic equality and the equilibrium of society. Let's just say you lived in a country where that was not afforded you, where you had to wear a garb, or you were at risk of being stoned or beheaded. Would that, even though in theory it sounds good to make these complaints, in theory it sounds good to make these suppositions, and I support this, I support that. Reality is a lot less forgiving than what we theorized as to be the case. And this is my point that I was making in that discussion on Next Door, that you could say that what if this and what if that, but we don't have to say that. We can literally look at history and say that we have the principles and we have the results of what would happen if you chose to live in a society based on these principles in contrast to a society based on other principles. That notwithstanding, of course, we know that America is not the perfect country, as no country is. Just take a good look at me. Take a really good look at me. I am of a darker persuasion, and we know historically there have been some issues with people of darker persuasions in this country. That being said, people in Africa come to America. People in Jamaica come to America. Jamaica was part of one of the roots that slavery that aided in the quote unquote thrall of slavery that was a vile period in American history. So, if America is as bad as people think it is, if it has this history that cannot be whitewashed, and it can't, right? Because we don't want to whitewash history, but if it's so bad, then why are people from Somalia coming here? Because I don't see Americans going to Somalia, and I don't see them going to Nigeria, and I don't see them going to South Africa. I don't see them going to any of these countries where people claim that it's a better place to live, like Liberia. Liberia, of course, was what? Founded by the United States of America. So why aren't Americans literally risking their lives, dying to get out of this country, to get to these other places that theoretically are so much better? It's not happening. There's a reason that it's not happening. So I think this farce and this narrative that goes out there, it's really just that. And the fact that there are so many people that are willing to just continue to parrot this out, and then put themselves in some interesting situations because of their quote unquote beliefs. And that's up to them. You're entitled to believe that. That's the great thing about living in the United States, which I always point back to again, is that you have that opportunity and that right to complain here in contrast to other places. You cannot do that. You would not do that in other places. That being said, let's get back to Leah defends women's sports, supports increasing the homestead exemption so people can stay in their homes, record for fighting for lower taxes, which I think if you were to ask anyone in America an honest opinion, give me an honest opinion, right? Give me your honest opinion. If I said that, all right, the average person, they work, maybe they're married, maybe they're not, they're single, have kids or not, don't need to know people's personal business, but I can tell you, I can just say, let's just say me. Single, no kids, own a home, cars, have a job, bank account, right? So pay property tax, pay school tax, right? If you could say that you did not pay any property tax here, I don't know what, at least $4,000, to say between $4,000 and $8,000, that was in your pocket. Didn't have to pay that every year. Would you want that? I don't care what political persuasion you are. Would you want no taxes? Most people, if they give me an honest decision, they would say yes, right? Okay. So if I said that you want to be free from hurt, harm, or distress in your house, right? That means that when you, going back to Magna Carta, right? If, the man's house is his castle. If when you cross the threshold of your house, you expected that there was a privacy part of the social contract that we live amongst each other, that no one's kicking down your door, coming in and harassing you and dragging you out of your bed because they could do it. We'll fight to keep Texas' borders secure. Apply that same principle to the United States as a whole, as a land, that there's an expectation of privacy here. There's an expectation that, hey, bad things are not coming in, right? We will send good things out, but we don't want bad things in. Now, of course, immigration is more than that, but the principle is that we want a secure border because we don't want bad things coming in. And then anybody else coming in, we can vet them and say, hey, okay, that's a good person. We're going to bring them in. Oh, that's a good case. That's going to bring that in. Oh, that's a good case. And that is immigration in a nutshell. Simply do it the right way. Go through the process. And we understand, as a person that has been to Colombia on multiple occasions, I can tell you this, when you go through customs at Colombia and it's time for you to leave, if you do not leave, that's not a good thing for you. And I don't think it's a good thing for you in many countries. In fact, I know it's an illegal thing in many countries. And American prison is a lot different. than in prison in other countries, and what you will go through as a foreigner in those countries in comparison to what you go through as an American. In America, you're afforded these rights, you're afforded these privileges, and this treatment that is just different than other places. Now, if you give me a good, honest answer, most people would agree with that. That's if you're going to be honest. Okay, so then there was Taylor Remmett, who believes that girls' sports bathrooms and locker rooms should be shared by boys. Now, I always make this a very simple thing. Let's see. How many people have gone shopping for clothes, particularly women? I would say a lot of people have gone particularly shopping for clothes. Even if you have a boyfriend or a husband, more or less. But let's say when you go into your dressing room to try on your dress or your underclothes or your pants or a hat, whatever it is that you're going to be fitted to try on, imagine if any man in particular, because that's a stranger, is allowed to come into there with you and it's normalized. Just would you as a female, and that forget about the whole argument of what a woman is and everything. We're not even gonna get into that. But you, as a person, as a female, you go into the dressing room, you take off your clothes, you get in there, and then a guy walks in who says that, well, I'm a female, so I'm allowed in here. How would you feel? Because there are many people that say that's okay. Now, I don't think that's the majority because it's not. But for the people that do say that, I always say that when you go shopping next week or tomorrow, just make sure that you're allowed any male to come in there and watch you undress, to be with you, and just consort, and it's going to be normal. I don't think that's an honest. If you give me an honest answer, that's not going to be what you want. It's not. Now, multiply that. Your little son, well, the interesting thing about this is I don't see women fighting to go in men's rooms, because basically you're saying that there's no gender and so everything's all equal. So why aren't women fighting to get in men's bathrooms? Where are all these women that are out here identifying as men? And there are plenty of women that are identifying as men. Why aren't they knocking down these gymnasiums? Why aren't they going into these athletic departments and going, hey, we deserve to be in here like anybody else? That's not happening. So it is a one-sided story. So I'd say now you multiply that and you say you have a little girl. You're a father or a mother. Don't care your political persuasion. Don't care your religious background. Don't care your ethnicity. Don't care about anything. Your daughter goes into the bathroom. You're eating some McDonald's. She says, Mom, I got to go to the bathroom. She goes in the bathroom. She comes out screaming. She says, what's going on? There's a guy in there. Are you good with that? If you give me an honest description, if you give me an honest decision, I'm going to say that parents just aren't good with that. Now, for the parents that are, there are repercussions and there are consequences. Everything, there's equal and opposite reaction. So that's I would say that just basic common sense. Now, we don't have to get into the whole concept of what a woman is and men can have pregnant. I always say, how many men gave birth last year? There's got to be a statistic for it, right? How many men had abortions? How many men had miscarriages? Of course, there's Planned Parenthood, there's hospitals all across the globe. For some very strange reason, there's no statistics based on that. But there are statistics how many women had miscarriages, how many women gave births. Anyway. So, supports rent control that mandates government control over Texas property. For those people that don't understand, this rent control is it's going to be a very simple thing. If you have rent, everybody has equal rent, but prices go up, and now you have maintenance and repair. Of course, you can't build more homes because home builders are building homes at cost, which means they want to get a return on their investment, ROI. If they're building things, they get no return on investment. What happens? Well, they stop building homes. If they stop building homes, that means there are less homes for people to live in. If there are less homes for people to live in, that means prices and interest rates will go up. That means right here in Fort Worth area, that's exactly what's going to happen when you try to put rent control. Socialism just doesn't work. How do we know that? We've got hundreds of years to look at it. Does it work in Russia? No. Did it work in Italy? No. Did it work in Germany? No. It just doesn't work. But I digress. If that's what people believe they want, you're entitled to choose. That's the great thing about the United States of America. Supports federally run government healthcare system that will increase taxes and limit healthcare options. We don't need limited healthcare options. We need more options, and actually, because we know that Obamacare doesn't work. You're paying the price for that. With Obamacare, what did he say? That if you don't do this, then you're going to be fine. With Joe Biden, if you don't take COVID, you're going to lose your job. You're going to be fined. So though that you want to talk about draconian or it's harsh reality of life, that doesn't work. So, but again, you're entitled to vote for what you want. And then, of course, supports a candidate who wants open borders. Now, when it comes to open borders, let's get off of that, and I'm going to let's see. Yes, I want to talk about this for 1 second, real quick, if I can find it. No. That. Bingo. Let's do this. Nothing in life is free, my mom, my dad, your mom, your dad would say. I want you to look at this chart right here. These are the top 12 cities, sanctuary cities that are receiving federal funds. Because if people come over to the United States, they have to live somewhere. They need education, they need health care, right? They need the ability to go to the hospital and receive treatment if they need. They need transportation. They also need clothing. They need housing. So if you look at the statistics right here, experts say roughly 1 in 5 estimated 11 million legal immigrants, or 2.2 million, live in one of the 12 cities that do not cooperate with U.S. immigration authorities yet receive federal funds for a variety of programs. When I say federal funds, I want you to just remember the word taxes. So taxes pay for federal funds. Your tax money then goes to support the people that many people would say they have this right. And immigration is not a legal right. It is it is more of a human issue. It's a legal issue. Excuse me. Immigration is not a human right. It is a legal issue. I said it wrong. Again, immigration is not a human right. It is a legal issue. Of course, it is a legal issue because we have laws that are on the books specifically designed for immigration. So, in Los Angeles, 893, $502.5 million to pay for. Okay, you get it. New York City, $7.6 billion. That means there's $7.6 billion that could be allocated for the homeless, could be allocated for veterans, could be allocated to people that live in socioeconomically disadvantaged neighborhoods that have sat in rot and despair for years. Baltimore, part of New York, Alabama, Compton. Get my point? Haltom City. Yeah, Haltom City. Imagine if the resources that are being allocated, and I'm not one of those people that doesn't understand the plight of the immigrant. Of course, what I would say one of the worst things that I saw when I was in Colombia was walking down the street near my friend, my guy, and I saw a female, and when you see this image, she was sitting on the curb, and she had both her breasts out, and she was feeding her child, and she had nowhere to go. And I asked him, I was like, I'm asking him in Spanish, ¿cuál es el problema? What's the problem? And he was like, oh, there's no resources. Because millions of Venezuelans that come across the border through Cúcuta and dispersed throughout Colombia, Bogota, Cali, Medellin, Barranquilla, Santa Marta, and all these places. But after the government tried through the social services to supply them with their needs, at some point it becomes unsustainable. And then it causes rift between Colombians because there's this situation with Colombian women and Venezuelan women, and there was crime, prostitution, all these things that impact the entire infrastructure of the country because you have millions and millions of people that are in dire circumstances in your country. Vis-a-vis here. We've seen some atrocious crimes that are committed against American citizens. We've seen crime, robbery, all these things spike during this period where we've had this unfettered border of immigration. Why is that so? Well, when you have people in despair, it's unfortunate. So now somebody has to go and pay for all the things that I said. So $5.3 billion of your tax money is going to Chicago, right? 283 million, Seattle, Austin, Texas, where I've been, and I saw the amount of homeless there, and I was surprised that it's the one of the weirdest things. If you've been to Washington D.C. and you go outside the 10 square miles, what do you see immediately? You see crack files, you have high rates of murder, you have carjackings, you have crime. It's the strangest thing in all these capitals across the country, that outside that area where power is invested, there's a lot of hurt, there's a lot of crime, there's a lot of just darkness, right? But this is the case. It's the strangest thing. If you go in some of the communities here, you'll see one side of the street, it's just very affluent, and then the other side of the street, it's like, what happened? Why is that so? If socialism works. So Newark, New Jersey, 200, and so you get the point. This is what your tax money is doing. So if you need new roads in your community in these places, well, that's going to be a problem because your resources are being directed towards other places. Now, here's the kicker. Let's just say that you live in one of these cities like New York City, which accumulates a lot of taxes. Not only are your taxes paying for immigrants in New York City, but the residue of your taxes are going to pay for people in Denver. So you're getting doubled. You're getting doubled up. But yeah, so I just thought that would be something that I should share to give people a kind of an understanding that, nothing's free. So you can protest and you can cry and you can say that you want this and you want that and you want everything, but just know that you're going to foot that bill. And at some point, it's unsustainable. So if people start going, every check that you get, you need to give $100 to an immigrant, I want you to give me an honest answer. If the government came to you right now and said, do you support immigration? You said, yes, I support immigration. And I support that people should have the things that they need to survive in this country. And they say, okay, great. We're going to take $100 out of your check every week in order to make that possible. What would you say? And I think most people, if they were giving an honest answer, we're not going to give you your tax return for the mothers that have children and that are waiting for their $8,000 or $9,000 after their tax return. I'm sorry, but we're going to have to take that because we need to facilitate and allocate resources for the millions and millions of people that need to be here. If you give me an honest answer, I don't think that people are going to readily be so accepting to that. But it really sounds good in principle and passion and emotion. No, it doesn't. It doesn't sound. It's just that people can be so antithetical against something or someone or an idea or a concept that they get past reality, past their boundaries of realism to it's like you're just living in a world that just, you wouldn't live in that world yourself. But, so be it. Okay, so let's see. We're getting back to, we've talked about a lot of that. I know what we're supposed to get back to. So let's get back to this. So again, think about the election and the results. Do you think that was more of a situation where Republicans did not turn out? Which I believe if Republicans had turned out, then this would be something that people would not be talking about. But because they didn't, and obviously there are clearly more Republican voters than there are Democratic voters, particularly for this one area. We're just going to keep it in this square here. And then, of course, there will be the official election. Unfortunately, if things go, let's just say hypothetically, that Republicans turn out to vote in November, that means Taylor would have won the seat for Senate District 9, but he will never have made it to a vote because they don't convene again until next year, January, which means that it would have been a symbolic victory in a sense. Let's just say, hypothetically speaking. But in the event that he won in the November election, then of course, right? So we shall see. So again, getting back to, you think off-cycle elections are important enough to get out and vote? I think that they are, and I would, excuse me, let me hydrate. If people understood the import of off-cycle elections and how it's impacting their communities, whether it be a commissioner, it could be your zoning board. We live in HOAs, right? Of course, these elections are different, but it does impact, and it's incumbent upon people to understand that you can make the difference. For instance, in my past life, I was privy to being at city councils and being involved on commission boards and things of that nature in my past life. So there's Fort Worth City Council here. Now we're going to cover a little bit of what's going on, some highlights, so to speak. But for the time that I did see, I always heard people complain about things that were going on in the city. This comes to mind right now. There were resources allotted to refurbish parks. I have nothing against parks. Nothing against parks. It's great. It's aesthetically beautiful for the city. But then there were neighborhoods that sat just dilapidated, and there were parks in those neighborhoods that were probably or could probably use that that funding more than the areas that was being funded, and most of the areas that were being funded were like, affluent areas. But that is where the money was going, because the people that actually cared would show up to city council and put forth their proposals and show their concerns and their issues and make sure that money was allocated to those areas, sort of like lobbying. So let's say you live in Trailer Park, or you live Haltom City, Hazlitt, Saginaw, whatever the case may be, but you don't go to your city council meetings. You don't go to Fort Worth council meetings. You don't get involved in your local politics. You don't know who your commissioners are or your councilmen are. And you sit back and go, I don't understand why these streets don't get repaired. I don't understand why the city is allocating money to refurbish South Lake Carroll's football stadium. I don't understand why we're spending money for Burleson to create new departments or new commercial zones for companies when we could be applying that money. You're going to complain about it, but you're actually not going to go let your voice be heard, because there's one thing that council members hear is when city people show up to those councils and tell them no. There was a situation where they were giving someone 500 and something thousand to do some type of growth in the backyard. Of course, I know it's a kickback. And being on one of the funding councils, I was like, no, we can't do that. It was like, no, but we can, this money can be allocated. I was like, no, we can't do that. There's other things that the city, because you have a vote when you're on these councils, or you're a commissioner. And it's like, no, we can't do that. And I think that we need more commissioners that will be able to put their foot down and say, no, we should be spending the money in this part of the city instead of that part of the city. But of course, you have to elect those type of people, and that comes from being involved. So we can sit back and we can complain, which many civilians do, right? We do. We all are guilty of it. Or we can organize or get in touch. We can make phone calls. We can write letters. And I'm not telling you have to be a super civic person. But what I am saying is that you have the ability, and you have more power than you think. There was issues where things were being taught in schools. We have those situations here, right in Texas, where there are books that are having sexually explicit images and what we say, sexually explicit. How can I say it? Past the imaging, but stories. And your children are picking these books up, or being asked to pick these books up in your local libraries, in your school system. And if you don't say anything, there are people that are sitting on these boards. And I will say something about these people that sit on these boards, if I might. Many people sit on these boards, but they send their children to the schools that are not affected by this. I'm going to say that again. Many people sit on these boards. Many people send their children to schools that are not affected by them, like school choice. People will complain and say that they don't want to vote for school choice by people, right? But they send their children to private school. It's not right. It's not right. That's not right. So again, you have the opportunity with these elections, these local elections. So just all the things that I'm talking about, you have these opportunities to make a difference. You do. I'm going to look for something, if I might. So let me bring that off the page, and I'm going to. Um, do we want to talk about? Yes. So I'll bring this back on the screen, and I'm pretty sure I remember what I want to talk about again. So the fourth point of discussion would be immigration is not a legal right. I have a lot going on here. Let's see. Can go. Okay, excellent. Take this off because it's just me, and I'm doing what I do. In this, when I say that immigration is not, you don't have a right. You have the right to due process. You have the process of immigration, but you don't have the right to immediately just say, "I want to come in," and you have to let me in. You can apply for asylum, right? And see what happens, right? Roll the dice. So there is a situation going on right now in our country where many people believe that they're against, not say against ICE, because I'm going to talk about that situation in a minute. But I'm going to preface this, I'm going to show you some things. So immigration has a law. How do we know what that law is? Well, it's easily defined. So this is, in case you want to know or anybody wants to know, this is the Immigration and Nationality Act. And you can see all these codes because it's part of 8 U.S. code. And you can talk about the level of immigration, which means the numerical limitations or individual foreign states, the allocation of immigration visas. So when people talk about the laws, this is more feeling than what's actually there. And you can see right there, asylum, adjustment of status, special agricultural workers, and so forth and so forth and so on and down the line. And then if you come to this side, over here, you see things that's very interesting about immigration. So historically, when Democrats have been in power, they voted for DHS funding. Of course, if you were to watch the news right now, you have Democratic Party members saying that they don't want to fund DHS. But the significant number of people are saying that, and they want to nudge these funds so they can get a policy change. But let's look at this. Immigration agents have long had the ability to conduct operations without judicial warrants. How do we know? Well, we know that during the Obama administration, 5 million people were deported. 73% of those people had no criminal record. I'll say that again, 73% of those people had no criminal record, yet they were still deported because they were in the United States illegally, according to the Obama administration. Obama administration was a Democratic administration. ICE and border agents have utilized mass during operations, but if you were to watch the news and the narrative today, is that all of a sudden it's illegal. It's not illegal. They've been doing this for years. Detention. Previous administrations, including Obama's administration, have set records for deportations, which I said 5 million plus. But the current Democrats party would say, no, that's not right. We can't be doing that, and so forth and so on. But during the Biden administration, nobody said anything about ICE and a mask or any of those things because there was this little thing called enforcing the law, right? Okay, use of force, previous enforcement. Strategies allowed for broad discretion in the field, but as of early 2026, you see the situation. Context, the Border Patrol has historically aided ICE, which people say, no, CBP should not be doing it. Well, they have. They've been doing this for years. They've been aiding ICE and with inland operations. So there's a difference between what people want to be real and what is real, what people want to be law, procedure, and practice, and what is law, procedure. And this is the gray line that many people try to influence people to say, or like I think Don Lemon say, I was arrested for a misdemeanor, but a misdemeanor is not a crime. Well, it's a crime according to the statute. It is. Or people say, well, Undocumented immigrants are not criminals. I just showed you the law. You can look for it yourself. 8 U.S. statute, U.S. code, and you can just go down it. Now, I'm not here to be a harsh liner, but let's not pretend that there aren't laws in the books that people have clearly enforced and clearly been proponents of for administrations in the past, but now say, oh, that's not the law. It's not illegal to enter the United States. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's still the law. It has not been repealed, and you voted on it. You voted on that. You wrote that law, and you wanted that law enforced until it became disadvantageous or something that was just part of the shtick. Like, oh, we need to resist. We need to resist so hard that we should break the law in resisting. No, you shouldn't. No, you shouldn't, because you're just misleading people, and you're giving people this false sense of security that, oh, what we're doing is right, and there is no law on immigrant. No, there is. There is. So, anyway, I just thought that would be an interesting thing while we're covering the whole immigration aspect of it. Let's see. So, springboarding from that, man, we're covering a lot. We are covering a lot. That's good. Getting back to this. So getting back to the whole point of immigration is not a human right. It's also not a legal right. Now, it is a legal issue, which means you don't have a right to immigration. You have to come in, you have to present your case for asylum or whatever the case would be. You have H-1 visas, you can come in as a tourist. You have a lot of different avenues to be here, either permanently or non-permanent. So it's not a legal right according to the laws that are on the book. It is also not a human right, which means that we just feel good. We ought to do this. Again, I always tell people when they start doing this, like, it just makes us feel good. A lot of things make you feel good as a person. That doesn't necessarily mean they're right, and that also doesn't mean that it's expedient to continue doing a certain behavior. As the United States of America, and as citizens of the United States, you can't just afford to bring every single person, no matter how much that you want to do it. If everyone in the world of the United States would no longer be the United States. Things will look a lot different. Things will look a lot different. Of course, I'm dramatizing that, but you get my point. So, we'll get to the economy in a minute, but let's go back to this. Let's talk about voter ID and the statistics. So the latest poll says that 76% of black people want voter ID. I, as a person that is, you call black, dark, moreno, whatever you want to call me, can get ID. I think as many people that look like me or minorities, and I always say minorities has nothing to do with color, because there are some very, very poor minorities in West Virginia in the mountains that can get ID. It's just the strangest thing. It really has no argument unless you just simply just like, yeah, black people are so poor. They're so mystified. Those poor people, we have to help them. We have to help them. They're just not smart enough to go down and get an ID. I know that we live in an information age where you can get them online. I just don't know what they're going to do. We just need to pity them. I don't know. 82% of Latinos agree in voter ID. 85% of whites agree with voter ID. And I think that I have a chart up here. I do. I may have. Let's see. Let's put this one up here. So if you see the voter ID opinion, and I think it's being covered by this. 84% of the United States believes that we should have voter ID. 84%. 84% of people believe that we should have voter ID. In fact, if we go to CNN, yes. I don't know if you know who Harry Enton is. And somebody said, wait a minute, you sound like you're more of a conservative and a Republican. I am, but I also grew up in New York, which means I can hear both sides of an argument or both sides of an issue and make my decisions. Now, of course, I have my leanings, like anyone does. So 83%, according to Harry Enton, when he was talking about Americans agree with Nicki Minaj, when it comes to voter ID. 83% favor voter ID per Pew Research Center poll. This includes 70% of Democrats and Republicans, as well as 75% of Americans across races, white, black, and Latino. There it says 85% white, 82% Latino, and of course 76% of blacks. Eaton breaks down this result with ID with 95% of Republicans and conservatives and 71% Democrats agreeing with Nicki Minaj's recent post on Instagram in favor of requiring photo ID. If you go on a plane right now, if you want to go on a plane, go without the ID, what's going to happen? Not getting in. If I go to your bank to withdraw money from your account, I can't get it. Why? Because I'm not you. But you can get it when you verify who you are with your voter ID. Case closed. Case closed. So, you see this situation. I find it as a like I said, as a person that's a little darker than everybody else, and some people, I just find it's very insulting to me. Right? I think that I'm fairly situated in life. I think that I can think. Right? And I always say, excuse me, let me hydrate. That I can have a conversation with anyone when it's let me give you some background. If I say this is black and you say that it's white, we're not going to have a very good conversation, because I think that everyone could see that that's recognized as the color of black, which means that there has to be some truths, not relative truths. There have to be some confirmed truths, positive, enduring. But if a person is living in a world where truth is relative to what they think it is, and you want to have a conversation with them about truth, for instance, gravity. If they think they can fly, and when you're telling them, no, I don't think that you can fly because there are certain laws that at work within our hemisphere, within our world, and they jump off a cliff saying, no, but you don't understand. I know I can fly because that's my truth. Okay. And I can generally have better conversations with people that have finite truths and understand that truth is immutable. It doesn't change for anybody. Now, on the basis of that, if you get in conversations with people and you can establish, okay, how do you see the world, and you do recognize that there are some finite truths, then you're going to be able to have a different conversation. Now, whether they agree or you agree is a whole nother issue, but at least you'll have a framework to work in. And I think that's very important when it comes to some things politically and some things in reality as well. Okay, so now, southern border apprehensions, what has happened? No laws have changed, no border policy has changed, but enforcement has changed, which we just talked about. We talked about voter ID. Americans, according to polls, support deportation. 73% of Americans say coming here illegally is breaking the law per poll. Americans per poll suggest deportations. They agree with that and are against anti-ICE politics. It is a U.S. code regardless that you can't enter the United States without approved authority. We're going on with that, the statute, looking at that. We already talked about sanctuary cities. So immigration is not this human right that's contrary to what people say. And the lost concept of immigration is that the purpose of immigration is to serve the host country, which means that you're supposed to bring here some talent, some ability that enhances our society and enhances our culture. You're not supposed to leech. You're not. It's like you going to another country. If you were going there and you say, you know, I'm just going to go to Spain and just live for free. What are you adding to Spain? And that is the whole purpose of immigration, that there should be a plus. There should be a win-win. It means that you get to come here and you get to experience all the benefits for living in America, but you get to add to America as well. 129,000 unaccompanied children have been found since Biden left office. So this is January or February now of 2026. Trump actually came into office, or officially January 20th. So in a year, 129,000 children that were unaccompanied while this whole situation at the border was going on have now been found and been reunited with their families. Nobody's talking about that because nobody wants to talk about the good. we're gonna let's go and show you some. I think this is right. Put this up. So southern border apprehensions. You can see right there the lowest. So we're talking about 200 and basically 40,000 apprehensions in a year. In contrast, you can see the figures and the numbers up there during the previous administration. Interesting thing, 0 have been let into the United States, according to, if I believe the number is. So what's changed? The only thing that's changed is that we're starting to enforce the policies. So there are plenty of laws that Democrats have passed and supported during the Biden, Obama, Clinton administration, when we talked about. Let's see. Put that up for you. These are all the laws that were passed during the Obama administration. And Biden, Clinton, whatever the case may be, that was supported by a Democratic Party. But now they're thinking, no, these are not the laws. No, they're still on the books. They're still in the books to this day. So, yeah. Okay. Oh, jump quickly to a little local stuff. So, Fort Worth Council, the city council, if I can find that, which I think is something that you'll probably want to know. And I always say it's very interesting what goes on in politics. So Fort Worth Council salaries may be on the May ballot, which means that they're attempting to increase them from 29,000 and 25,000, basically doubling to 60,000 and 50,000. So this is the measure that will be up there. If approved in May, the pay raises will go in effect in October at the start of the 2027 fiscal year. These were shot down in 2016 by 2/3 of the voters when a proposal was given that the mayor should be 60,000 and council members 45,000. But that's what they're trying to do. So there are several amendments also to expand and clarify city manager's authority. And the city manager is hired and reviewed annually by the city council. So just think about this. You elect these people going off, and the first thing you do is say, you know what, I think we need a pay raise. Do you get a pay raise? That's all I'm going to say about that. Things that you should know. Okay, something else. Tarrant County is it's using AI to investigate online child exploitation. There's also this Fort Worth-based BNSF, which is going to commit $3.6 billion to railroad improvements. Siemens Energy is going to be investing $1 billion across these states: North Carolina, Alabama, New York, Texas, Florida, and Mississippi. And then there's $10 million aimed at bettering Fort Worth recycling, according to this article in the Fort Worth Report. And there's this new book program, according to the Fort Worth Report, that's being aimed to aid Fort Worth ISD youngest readers. So that's some local stuff. Okay, now let's get back to some other questions as we can wrap this thing up. Okay, B. How do I want to put this on the screen for you? There we go. So let's put that up there, and the current slide, then you can see it better. So what do you think about the economy as it right now, and how's it affecting in comparison last year? I can statistically say that groceries are down. So whether that's eggs, let's see, when I say consumables or parables, are your fruits and vegetables down? Yes. What about energy? Is energy down? Well, gas is definitely down. We live in Texas, even though we're affected by the fact that this is an oil state, and we're surrounded by oil states. Not surrounded, but connected to. Is gas down? If gas is down, then that means energy price is down. Energy affects everything, whether that be the supply chain, which obviously is everything, getting you your clothes, getting you your foods, getting you detergent, whatever it is that you use in your house on a day-to-day basis. Energy affects all of that. So whether you think about it or not, what do you think the economy is going right now? I think do I have something on that? In fact, I do. So let me just show you something real quick, and we'll get back to that economy thing. Oh, no, actually, that's taxes. Let's not do that. Let's not do that. Let's not do that. But if you think about everything that's going on right now from last year and where the direction economically was going, how do you feel? 401k, because people have 401ks. Are you saving money? Are you being able to keep your head above water? Whereas capacity, last 4 years were really tough for many people. Fortunately, things seem to be turning in the right direction. We're not getting into tariffs and a lot of things that are going on internationally that's affecting us economically. All right, apartments. Apartment rents have been lowered nationally, but do you see or feel that in case you are in an apartment? But this is true. Apartments have been lowered. Do I have that up for you? I don't think I have it up for you. But there's a dramatic decrease in that. Let's go to the next slide real quick. Here we go. Tax returns. What do you think your tax return will be? Without telling me, obviously, don't tell me. But what are the expectations considering the new laws? So I will take that off and I will show you something. Your deductions will definitely change. I'll take that down so you can see it. So families now, working families, 31,500. That's a huge change from the 13,000, which was in 2016. And if I could get over here to tax return law changes and get this up for you. So 2026 tax year, which is going to be filed 2027, there are some significant changes from the big beautiful bill. We're obviously raising the standard deduction to 32,200, which we're just showing you. That's for married couples. The child tax credit is increased to 2,200 and allows a 6,000 plus extra deduction for seniors. There are new deductions for tax for tips and overtime, which apply, and the SALT, which maybe doesn't affect a lot of people, cap rises to 40,000. So let's see the key things here. Make sure I'm on the screen. Standard deduction, 3,200 plus. For if you're filing jointly, or 16,000. Like for me, filing without kids, single. Child tax credit, 2,200 per child. 2,200 per child. That's increased with refundability. Senior deduction, additional 6,600 available for taxpayers 65 and older with income phase outs. The SALT deduction cap doesn't affect a lot of people. Let's just say it though, is increased to 40,000. The new income deductions, 25,000 for tips and 12,500 for overtime income with income limitations. But how many people make more than that in overtime? Charitable deductions is going to be 1,000, 2,000 for joint filers, and then as qualified, the QBI deduction is set to expire. The alternative minimum tax is going to be exemptions may apply. Gambling losses. Deductions for gambling losses are limited to 90% of your winnings. And then there's 30-day reportings for the 1099K. There's a threshold for that platform is set at 20,000 and 200 transactions. There's the deposit rule change, which the IRS will freeze refunds for rejected and direct deposits and not automatically issue paper checks. And then HSA and health plans, bronze and catastrophic plans are considered HAS compatible. It's a lot of good stuff there. I didn't file my taxes just yet. I need to get them done. But a lot of good things there. All right. Another thing that we can talk about real quick is the HB 863. This is a law that's being proposed. There was an election in Virginia, in case you don't know. New governor Spansberger. She won against Winnie Newsom when he lost. The outgoing Republican governor had set in play a lot of laws to help the state. But let's just see what Ms. Weinsberger wants to do. Within the days of Abigail Spanberger being sworn in, they introduced a bunch of amendments to end mandatory sentences for various crimes within the state. HB or House Bill 863 would effectively eliminate minimum sentencing for manslaughter, rape, possession and distribution of child pornography, assaulting the law officer, and other repeat violent felonies. I didn't make this up. I couldn't make that up. That's what's going on in Virginia. So I don't know. I don't know. And for many people that run on this quote unquote position, like you see on mine, it says Vista Meadows, faith, family, community. Let me explain that to you. I live in Vista Meadows. That's an easy one. We already talked about changing the world. That's an easy one. The world's constantly changing. But faith, right? So it's very simple. Faith. Most people are people of faith. I didn't get into the whole depth of that. Most people are. And then family. If I ask the average person that's a voter or a citizen, you want your family to do well. You want them to have a hope in the future, right? You want to earn enough to supply them with the life that you think that they should have. You want to have to give them a better life than you had. And then community. The foundation of our society, our democratic republic, the foundation of the world is that you should have good families. You want to do well by the families. If you have good families, that creates good communities. Vista Meadows. If you have good communities, then that creates good neighborhoods and good cities and good states and then a good country. But if you attack the family unit, right, and you start doing these things where, oh, you know, we're going to live in a certain mental state where, oh, I don't know if the family unit's good. We're going to take an attitude that it's not that important. We're going to do things in our public and school systems that attack the family unit. When the family unit goes, the community goes. When the community goes, the neighborhood goes. When the neighborhood goes, the city goes. And when the city goes, the state goes. And when the state goes, the country goes. And you get what they call chaos. Do you want to continue to vote for people that even though they say they're for their family, they're doing everything but things that are going to enhance the family? Vis-a-vis. Virginia, Bill 863. That's not going to help the family. But it sounds so good. Remember what I said earlier, that many people that have these great plans or these great thoughts, they don't send their children to these schools. They don't put their children in harm's way. No, 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 no. And you don't have to believe me, but do you recall when Governor Abbott sent some people to Martha's Vineyard? The same people that are espousing all these great ideas immediately shipped them out because they did not want them in their area. Those are the facts. They don't want this stuff in their area. People that say, oh, there should be a world without walls. They have walls. They have guards. They don't want crime. They don't want drugs. They don't want fentanyl. They don't want people with low moral character and values. They don't want to get hit over the head. They want that in your neighborhood, in your city, in your school. But they don't want that for themselves or their children. If you can't see that, I don't know when you're going to wake up. And so, but hey, it is what it is. So that is, we don't want Bill 863 in Texas. We don't want that. So the last thing, point 9, is that so a lot of information we get, whether I'm on Twitter or Facebook or YouTube, whether I'm watching Candace or Hannity or The Five, or whether I'm getting my information from Twitter, as I said before. We also have some really good means of getting some information here from the Fort Worth Telegram. That's a place that you get things in the Fort Worth Report. I would say that the key takeaways before we even get into those people is this. Elections matter. That's what we talked about tonight. And we talked about a lot of different things. So elections matter. Families matter. And I think that CK Live 7624 Keller, Texas, me being Curtis Walker and doing this program every Tuesday night at 8:35, God willing. And I'm the precinct chair for 3465. Please vote for Curtis Walker. I would love to be your representative for TCGOP on the March 3rd election primary. So I will definitely be on the ballot. But I think accurate information addresses a lot when we talked about the voter apathy, by being able to disseminate the information fairly, right? Of course, we all have our taints and we all have our biases, whatever. But the implicit meaning is that just give people the information. Give them enough information to make accurate decisions that are going to help them and their family. Faith, family, community. And then what goes on in your community and your family should compel you to action. So that's at least the hope. So let's get into these journalists. And there you can see that reporter Emily Wolf for the Fort Worth Report, Nicole Lopez for Fort Worth Report. That just say anything that says FWR is Fort Worth Report. Anything that says FWT is Fort Worth Telegram. So you see a reporter for the environment, government accountability, Drew Shaw, service, Braden Garcia, Mira Crane for multimedia, John Forbes, and Cecilia Lizone for government, Marissa Green for faith, Jacob Sanchez for education, Tiffany Jackson Laws and Health, and of course the two means a media, Fort Worth Report, Fort Worth Telegram for your local stuff as well as some national stuff. You never know. You never know. All right. So, what do you guys think? I hope everybody enjoyed. And again, so you know, I do this. I enjoy sharing the information, and it's part of the whole concept of being a good precinct chair is to be able to get information out there to people, particularly in your precincts, to help them. So if you need help with registering to vote, if there's a topic or an issue of concern, please feel free. You have my number right there on the screen, but you can also reach me on email, or you can reach me on Facebook. Obviously, this is CK Live 76244, but I also have a personal page. So I hope that I'm being helpful. I hope that people are enriched, and I hope that I'm motivating somebody to at least stay informed. What you do with that is your own personal decision. But if you're informed, and if you then take the information that we talk about, join the discussion, I can see on Facebook your comments. People may think that I can't, but I can see them, and I respond to them in real time. I can also receive if you said, hey, I want to call him and say that something he said just now. I want to talk about that. Well, call that number, 336-473-5020, and you will literally be right here. That's why the headphones are on, that I can talk to you, and you can talk to me with no, it won't create any feedback on the program or the live stream. So yeah, I think that, we have this opportunity in our community to build a better community for us and our family. Of course, like I said, whether you're married or whether you're single with children or single without children, it's still all about community, and definitely faith impacts us all. Like I said, I make no reservations for telling people that I believe in Jesus Christ as my personal Lord and Savior. I believe that He is God. And if you don't know Jesus today could be the best day of your life. I welcome anybody to that, as Paul would say, that I want to become all things to all men, that I by all means save some. So that is my offer to you. If you don't know Jesus, then you might want to get to know Him. But nevertheless, in this political sphere and the time that we live, that it's really good to have people that are willing to tell us the truth, and people that we have that we can sound things off. You don't necessarily have to agree with everything I say. I know in the Republican Party people don't agree. I know in the Democratic Party people don't agree. I know independents don't agree. But I think what's best is that we continue to keep those things that I said: faith, family, community. Keep that in your forefront. Faith, family, community, and that's basically what this is all about. Is trying to create that type of atmosphere right here where we can share and learn and grow together. As a precinct chair, again. March 3rd, Curtis Walker. Please elect Curtis Walker. I would, hopefully be honored to represent you. And we're just going to continue to grow on. So I look forward to seeing you again next week, everybody. God willing, we'll have hopefully some more things to talk about. As I said, the world is constantly changing, and this is a changing world. And my name is Curtis Walker, and I wish everybody a good and pleasant good night and the rest of your work week. Bye-bye, everybody.